Jeri-Ashley DeLeon Bremer. I am a consultant and owner and founder of the Mindfulness Co. It is an organization that is dedicated to supporting families, family serving organizations, and companies in being more mindful and intentional and the ways in which they show up, which a lot of times reflects in our interactions with people. And so that is kind of the business side of what I do. But because I love working with family and children so much, I am also the senior director of academics and instruction for KIPP Texas. So we serve over 30,000 students and families in our 4 major cities, Dallas, San Antonio, Houston, and Austin. Actually, right about the time that I started Jai, I shifted a little bit of the work that I was doing. So I work in education. I have for over 10 years, and I went from working on a campus to working for a grant program that, and this is really cool, had a holistic approach to supporting students in achieving post-secondary success. So really taking a look at how we provide services to teachers, to districts, to families, directly to students to support them in gaining awareness and the tools that they need to, go into the workforce if that's what they choose, but really to have the option to go to college. And it was at this time when I was starting Jai and transitioning into this place that where we were holistically supporting children that I started to have this shift and kind of see the value of not working in isolation, but really being intentional and collaborative, and how teachers and parents and support systems within schools were working together to support the whole child. So there's a couple of ways that I've been doing this since starting Jai. So when I was coaching teachers directly, I used a lot of the tools that we learned, a lot of the information. I had some knowledge there from my own master's program and working in this setting, but there were some things that really shook me. One of them being, and I allude to this all the time, the Alfie Kahn's book of unconditional parenting, and this idea of how we are showing up for kids, and if we're putting stipulations on them and our relationships. And I reflected back to when I was in the classroom, and I don't like calling it a reward chart. It was a reward chart. It was a reward chart. Let's call it what it is. Let's call it spade a spade. It was a reward chart. And I was like, but it works so well. And when I took a step back and I thought more about it, I realized it wasn't the reward chart that worked. It was my relationship with my students that really impacted the dynamics in my classroom and motivated them. It wasn't the reward chart. It was the connection that we had. And when I had this realization, the conversations I was having with teachers when I was coaching them was different. It was reflecting back on, like, what are you as the adult doing? What are maybe some of the underlying concerns that you might have, beliefs you might have about yourself or your students that are holding you back from, from achieving what you want to achieve in your classroom, from creating the environment and the dynamics that you want to create. So that was kind of the first way that I was able to do that. Right now in the position that I have, I work with our middle school and high school campuses across the state of Texas, which is really cool. And so I still get to use some of this when I'm coaching like leadership on campuses. But what I'm able to do now is to take some of this and create professional learning opportunities and kind of like sneak little bits and pieces in there. And as I'm having conversations with, our regional leadership in San Antonio and Austin and Dallas, and even our organizational leadership, a lot of the questions that I ask comes down to, like, what are our internalized beliefs that are holding us back, that might be holding our teachers back from having stronger behavior management, right? Like from students being motivated. That's one of the biggest concerns I hear, not just from my educators here in Texas, but all over the country, is like our students aren't motivated. We can get them motivated. How is that? It's through our connections, through our relationships. And so how do we start peeling off these layers and unlearning some of these internalized beliefs and these internalized patterns in which we interact with students, to allow us to create the dynamics that we desire and create these realities that we hope for our students. One of the biggest things that I hear and that I come across in the work that I do is beliefs about grading systems, which I could go off on a tangent about, about grading systems and tests and assessments and all of these things. But a lot of what I hear is, grades being used as not so much to reflect what a student knows, but their behaviors. They use it as a way to sometimes, and I get this, like when you're struggling and you're like, what can I do? What do I have control over? Well, I have control over grades. And the question that I often ask is like, how is this going to motivate our students? Is this going to motivate them, or is this going to hurt them? Because if I'm a student who has felt like I can't be successful, I've always gotten in trouble, I've always been told and labeled as these things, and now I'm seeing this grade, which feels like a reflection of me as a person, am I going to be motivated to work? No, absolutely not. And I think about myself in my work as an adult. If I was told these things and I was constantly being told I underperform, I'm not a good employee, but no one was actually like supporting me, and I didn't feel like anyone cared about me, I wouldn't be motivated either. And so a lot of it is kind of like peeling back these layers to get to a place where we can be reflective and think about like, what are our intentions? What are we trying to do? And how can I support you in creating some of the systems now that we've come to this realization? Like, what systems do we need so you feel supported, so that we can get students back on track? I've had the privilege of working with kids since I was about 15 years old. And even then, there are some things like you are just not prepared for when you become a parent. And every child is different. Every child, every scenario, you are different. I'm not the same person now that I was with my first child, or that I was when I had when my bonus kiddo came into my life. I'm not the same person. And when I think about the work with Jai and how this has unfolded, it's impacted so much more than just how I show up as a parent. It's impacted the way I show up as an entrepreneur. It's impacted my relationships with friends and my family, my partner, my husband, the dynamics we have. And I think one of the most beautiful things is seeing the ways in which this has impacted my relationship with my parents and their relationship with my sister and I, and even the ways in which they interact with my kids. We had a family vacation that we went on, and my mom is very much in her feels. I think that's one of the most beautiful things about her. And, one of my kiddos is also very big feelings, and she just was having a hard time. And my mom, like a lot of, the older generation, just wants to fix things. Like, what's wrong? Can I get you? Like, what is it? And I'm like, hey, it's, like, let's give her a moment. She just, thank you so much. She just needs a moment. And she got her feelings a little hurt because that's who my mother is. And, I let her feel what she needed to feel. And we came back and had a conversation like, hey, when certain things happen, like when you hurt yourself, because that's what happened in my childhood, hurt themselves. When you hurt yourself, you don't want anyone talking to you. Like, you just need a moment to come back down, to like process through the pain and the hurt of whatever just happened, and then you're ready for people to talk to you. So that's all it was, right? Like, sometimes we just need a moment. Nothing needs to be fixed or addressed, and like, that's such a big thing, just like holding space for people to feel what they need to feel, like, and to validate that, like, how painful, like, that, damn, that must have hurt, right? That must have hurt, or I'm so sorry that happened to you, right? Like, that, like, in and of itself, I would say is one of the most impactful things that has come out of, this my work with Jai is just having the capacity to hold space for all feelings, for my kids, for my parents, myself, when I'm working with others. It's huge. It's life-changing. So since graduating from Jai, I've done a lot. So I've started consulting for organizations. Part of that is part of my background is in curriculum development. So I've actually developed some of my own curriculum based on the work that I've done in education, my learning from that, my learning from Jai. Yeah. I did a mindfulness and meditation course as well, just because I love learning, and I've integrated all of that into a course called Empowered Motherhood, which supports moms who feel stressed, overwhelmed, and burnt out in finding more calm, having a sense of control, and being more compassionate with the ways in which they show up for themselves and their families. In addition to that, I do have a group coaching container that I hold a couple of times a year. It's 12 weeks, and I kind of integrate several different things. Jai plays a huge role in kind of when I envisioned what I wanted that space to look like. It embodies and encompasses that. And so that's another thing. And then I also have a program for parents of tweens and teens specifically that I've a curriculum that I'm working on revamping. So that was one of the first things I created after Jai. I'm revamping it, and my hope and intention is for some of these curriculum pieces to be something that's available to organizations at a low cost, because when you're a nonprofit, when you're a school district, you don't always have the funds and the resources for those things. And I wanted to make sure that they had something that was of quality. So I have these, these big thoughts and ideas of how I'm going to continue this work, because impact is, I think, similar to you. It's just so important to me. Absolutely. I think, sometimes we get caught up in these ideas and containers of what it should look like. And there's so much flexibility. I would say focus on the need that you see, the need that you have, right? You took that leap of faith and you made that decision because you had a need. And I can guarantee you there are other parents, there are other mothers, there are other individuals who are struggling with the same thing. And if not the exact same thing, something similar. They're having those similar thoughts and emotions and interactions with their kids or their partners, and are wanting a solution. And you have that. And it doesn't have to be a group coaching. It could be one-on-one coaching for the 12 weeks. It could be a workshop that you take to your community center or your church. It could be going to a school PTA meeting and sharing a little bit about this work. Like, there is so much that you can do there. And so I would highly encourage you to think about, like, what does your community need? What do they need? What have they been asking for? Do they just need space to talk and share? Sometimes that's right. A lot of times that's what it is. The solutions, the answers are oftentimes within us. How can we hold space, though, to get us to that place where we return back to our inner knowing?